start the meeting at 9:02, and we'll do a call to order. If everybody will, do we do names now or after? I don't know all these rules. For the record, the meeting, okay, the date is the 11th, and who is present? Let's start down there with you, Dan. Your name?
Daniel Hughes.
Patrick Vaness.
Scott Safford.
Horst Tritzer.
Karen Swanbeck.
Jane Plummer. Okay, and now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance and then the invocation. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Please help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to work together for the good of our community. And need a approval of the minutes if anybody has any changes or
I don't have an amendment, but I have a comment.
okay.
On the first page, under Roman numeral 4A, microphone for Hughes was not working while he commented on the minutes. It's too bad it wasn't, because I was complimented the person who prepared the
Minutes.
now preparing the minutes.
You're right.
And it said that we needed to get some editing because there were occasional sentences that really didn't make any sense. And we discussed that. And the other thing was that follow-up minutes should show what the minutes were that were amended.
Correct.
And they have done that today.
Good.
Well, that's, I think we finally got that properly organized.
Anybody else have any changes?
I'll move that we accept the minutes as printed.
Second and all those in favor? I can't think of what I was saying. Aye. My words don't come, sorry. Okay, so that's done. Then we're
Madam Chair,
yes.
our fan club is telling me that we're not on YouTube right now.
Not on YouTube?
Nice you have a fan club. It's nice you have a fan club.
Fun.
All good.
I got 4 grandkids, so
25% is not bad.
You really watch these meetings? Sure. Okay, so she's getting that fixed. We'll
it's
go
up
ahead.
now.
Okay. Go ahead and move on to the public hearing. Is this a public hearing? No. Who is going to speak first?
Jason Green, Community Development. It's a request to vacate a portion of School Street right-of-way. We'll let Chelsea describe.
Can't hear you, Jason.
It's a request to vacate a portion of School Street right-of-way between a property that's around the ball fields, and I'll let Chelsea from Public Works describe it, and I think, John, we probably need to do.
First, let's swear in everyone. To tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
It is.
Just by way of background, because I have more than a passing familiarity with this particular matter and working with staff, is as several months back we brought before you a similar request to vacate a portion of School Street where we're working with the school board to exchange property so we have enough space, enough room for the improvements that the town council's directing staff to make out on Bay Oaks campus. And so this is part of that process. After we had originally came to you all and asked for that vacation request, which you approved, we then determined that school wanted us to shift some of the town improvements slightly different than what was originally proposed. So this now, this road vacation kind of got, I don't want to say missed, but we've identified that now we need to vacate an additional piece of property to accommodate that change with the school board, and that's why we're here before you to request the right-of-way vacation.
Does this include any parking spaces? Just,
No, that portion of the right-of-way has already been vacated. This is a little triangular piece.
Square and then, it's a square and then we'll triangle back.
Yeah. Do we have a graphic of what,
And,
yeah,
it's in that. Again, I apologize. This is the application package. We had a Adobe issue. Only I was out last week, but in the packet that was handed to you this morning, you'll see this Exhibit A. And the thatched piece is the piece that we're discussing here today. Yes, sir. We've already vacated the unshaded piece. This is just that other rectangular piece. And then the school district will return a small triangle piece back to the town. Vacate, you do 50-50, so it's kind of hard to do a isosceles triangle. So we're doing a rectangle and then back the school district and the triangle piece back to the town. Chelsea O'Reilly, Public Works Director. I apologize for myself. I'm here if you have any questions.
The only question I have, I don't see any problem with this. What's the larger strategy or approach here? I understand that this is for improvement of Bay Oaks, but we've got right of way all over the place. Wouldn't it kind of make sense strategically to vacate all the right of way and then just create new easements for wherever the utilities need to go?
So that's not the direction that I was given from the town manager. And part of it too is the backside of the recreational campus. There's a right-of-way back there. Well, typically if you do vacation, it goes to the abutting property owners. The county is the abutting property owner on the bay side of that entire parcel. So we would be giving town land rights of way right now to Lee County. So as of right now, we are just vacating what is required as part of this land exchange with the school district.
There are, to that question, at least in the context of this particular right-of-way, is instead of granting easements of that nature, there's issues of security, particularly for the school, that they wanted clear title to the property in question that they're going to own and control. And so it was decided between both parties that it would be best to do it this particular way. And that way the school board will have clear title to the land that it will control and that it will then fence in for security purposes in order to comply with state law. Conversely, the town will have clear title for all the lands that the Bay Oaks improvements will be on, which will now be on land that previously was owned and controlled by the school board that isn't even part of the right-of-way, just that where they own the underlying property in fee simple.
And I understand this idea of why we want to vacate and why it makes sense. I don't necessarily agree that if we vacate right of way, it's automatically going to go to Lee County. We can maintain ownership of all that land. It just seems like it would be a cleaner approach, but this is just commentary on my part. Staff can take it under consideration.
is there a Comcast tower back there? Why is Comcast getting a right-of-way?
Pardon?
Why is Comcast granting?
As part of the ordinance, we have to contact all facilities that could potentially have something back there. So Comcast is the local cable company that we had to receive a letter of no objection from.
And then Cellular Link, same thing?
CenturyLink, county, fire,
Water.
yes, yep.
Any other question? Was there any, did you get any calls on this at all as far as neighbors questioning what was going on?
Ma'am.
Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I'm recalling that earlier one. As I recall, there's an underlying agreement, right, that spells out,
Yes, sir.
yeah, that, which, the quid pro quo of both parties. And I remember asking at the time, well, we're vacating, well, how do we know they're gonna do what they're gonna do? And there's an agreement that provides that, if we do this, they'll do that,
That is correct.
yeah.
There's no other discussion. There's no public to speak, and would you like, you are public, I'm sorry. Would you like to speak? Okay. Anybody have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second?
Okey dokey. Call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chelsea, it was a brilliant presentation on your part.
Well, I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll smack him on the way out for you. Okay, so the next item of business, I guess, is going to this
Administrative agenda?
administrative agenda, resolution of the Historic Preservation Committee.
Yeah, so this item is your request last meeting is to bring forward the enabling resolution of the Historic Preservation Advisory Committee. So therefore, I think the discussion was going in the number of members and that sort of thing, but again, it's on here for your review and discussion. Notes of whatever your direction is and where it goes with council.
I think last meeting we had some discussion on the number of people. And has that been reduced?
So this is as is for
Okay.
your discussion amongst yourselves about what kind of changes you potentially want to request from the town council, edited or suggestions from staff.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
how many, what, is it 7 that we have currently on that, we're supposed to have on that committee?
It's a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 7.
I thought. How many applications have we got so far for that committee?
I'll double check again, but I don't believe there's been, I didn't think there was any to fill those other spots. I had reached out to former members and were interested in redoing it. I told them once their concern was whether it was going to be around. And so I said, well, we need the members. And I haven't checked lately, but I don't believe there was any applications. Check on that.
Scott, you're on that committee. How many people?
We had 5. Unfortunately, 2 of them are snowbirds, so it was hard. That's why we had 7. I take that back, we had 6. We wanted 7 because the quorum, you need people in off-season.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
And I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but since we're having a problem to get this committee together, yet people in the public do want the committee, but they don't want to serve on the committee, what keeps us from, since we are a part of the Historical Society Preservation Committee, why can't we just be that committee and we adjourn, go into a committee meeting for it as us being the committee, and then cancel, and then come out of that committee and go back into our original LPA committee, and it will solve us from having another group of trying to bring together, because I think there's people on here that really, I know Scott's interested in it, and I'm interested in it. Scott's been on it forever.
I served for quite a while.
And you was on it forever, so y'all got the background of the committee anyway. I think we need to decide as a committee, since we're in charge of that subcommittee, either us be the subcommittee or let's get it over with. I've been dealing with it since I've been on LPA.
Now, remember, you are the board, the Historic
Right.
Preservation Board, right? So
Right.
you
Be both.
close as the LPA and open as that board, and
We
then
used to
there's
do
also
that.
a committee. So you don't, in my opinion, you don't also need to be the committee. You're the board.
Right.
So it's either you get rid of the committee,
Right.
or you run it with 5 if you have that many or whatever it is. And I mean, that's, according to this, it's 5 or 7. So you don't need to fill the 7 spots to there. You just need 3. Then I think if it was a quorum question, you need 3 of the 5 to show up regularly, have a meeting.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, but because if you have 7, then you have to have more people that are there. So,
Having a hard time. So.
So if you have
of
5.
all the people that were on it, are they still want to be in?
There are 3. There's at least 2, I wish I had brought my sheet. There's at least 2 that are still on the committee by date. There's several that came off.
Oh, several that rolled off.
So you can technically convene the committee as long as you have 5 members, 1 being your LPA member. So you need 4, but you really need 3 total to show up on a regular basis I don't think it's good practice to really have 3, but you could do it with 5. It's however many you appoint between 5 and 7. So if you want to convene the committee with just the 5 members, get those numbers after this meeting, but we're trying to fill it. We weren't full.
What about if we had an alternate of, that being our representative, and is anybody else on the board? You're on the.
Forrest wants.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. I don't see any reason why we couldn't have 2 LPA members, because if one was traveling, then the other one could represent. So that would be wonderful if you would like to join that board. That would be good.
I've already submitted.
Oh, you have submitted, okay.
So,
Well-
so your LPA member role is filled by his
Okay, super.
appointment.
We've already voted on that.
Okay, so then we I guess we can leave it as no more than, less than 5 and no more than 7, in case we have a big
If I wants to join or something.
bunch of people that want to be on it.
We can have more.
Your
more
quorum
LPA we can have more LPA members on that.
I believe so. I mean, I don't
But
think.
if we leave it at no more than 7, can we still use the 3 as the quorum?
To how many you appoint. Right, John, I mean, it's, if there's 5 members appointed, you leave it at that, and you have a quorum of 3 to have meetings. If you appoint 6 or 7, then obviously that number changes. It would be 4. That was, I think, your initial problem was having enough at the quorum, but again, that conversation was all about 7. Carl's checking for us. He's trying to see if we can get the sheet. I think it's 2. It may be 2 plus the LPA member. So if it's 3, then you would leave it at 5 in theory.
Yes, I'm not following something. The ordinance was written no less than 5 and no more than 7, but they had appointed 7, is that what happened before, and then you couldn't get enough for a quorum?
Right.
So they had, okay, so what you really would have had, if I'm understanding it correctly, if there were people that were part of that 7, if they were no longer able to participate, they would have needed to basically resign from the committee, and then you could have gotten down to the 5 that you, okay.
So since that time, because this has been ongoing, Scott, for a year and a half?
Yeah, I mean, we ran into COVID too. We couldn't.
So, but also since that time, multiple members' term have expired. So we don't have 7 appointed members that
Right,
don't show
for the whole
up.
time.
You have, there's only 2 appointed. So, yeah, so there's your problem. You have 2 on by date, that their term is still valid. You have your LPA member, that's 3. You technically need 2 more.
We have to reappoint advisory committee. I think we have to decide if we're going to put seasonal people on there or not. And I think that's been one of the problems. And if we want seasonal people, we just agree that maybe off-season we don't hold as many meetings because it's hard to get the quorum.
Yes,
That
so
makes
currently, and I don't know the other 2 that are currently on, I don't know if they're seasonal or not, right? So that's something to
Do you
consider.
have their names?
We can get the list. I had it last month and I didn't bring it this month.
Is there a required number of meetings that they have to hold?
Oh, this is your,
Okay, so if we held it, 6 months of the year and not 6 months of the year, that would probably take care of the quorum issue. We had seasonal people on. If we reduced it to 5, and do we have any rules like with LPA that if you miss 2 consecutive meetings or 3 consecutive meetings without excused absence, whatever it is, that,
I would assume, I believe the enabling resolutions for all the committees are the same. I don't know what those rules are, but I know that when we did all of this, the town did all this, they created some consistency with rules that apply to the committees. Again, they're convening on their choice and your direction. It is technically a committee that you've created, asked for, to do essentially your homework, and then bring it back, and to have an engagement with the community and have more people involved. So that's its purpose. It gets direction from you, essentially.
right?
Well, from the Historic Preservation Advisory Board, which is you.
Well, I remember,
Need for it, and how many, and snowbirds or not snowbirds or meetings. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a have to have a meeting every month.
right,
Can, if we have a pressing item, can people join remotely? Can we do that?
Up to a point. The Attorney General opinions that exist out there on that subject indicate that there has to be a physical presence to constitute a quorum. Others may then potentially appear remotely, either through phone, Zoom, or some other electronic platform. But at this point in time, we're now back to the normal rules, and you have to have a physical quorum present.
so our goal today is to,
So, to complicate it, the 2 members, which are Beverly Milligan and Lori Wolf, they're still on it, but they expire this year. I believe it's September of 2021 is when those roll off. So there's that complexity of not only filling the other 2 to get to 5, but then you're going to have to replace 2 or rename them. So you still have the challenge of making sure you got 4 people.
are those people wanting to, we don't know whether they want to rejoin?
I have not discussed with Beverly Milligan or Lori Wolf. I have only reached out to people that rolled off, whose terms expired.
So,
They expressed interest, but we didn't see an application
okay,
that I know of.
I guess today we're just deciding if we want to change the number of seats or make a change to resolution setting up the advisory committee. Then the next step will be keep it in place. We need to get people to apply.
Well, yes and no. I mean, your decision on how many people are on a committee, technically, you could get 50 applications and still only appoint 2 more. Have to appoint all the way up to 7.
right.
Maybe you choose to do that if you have that many, but I think the bigger issue is getting multiple people to apply, at least 2. Listen, the second part of that conversation is are these 2 members going to start joining, and or are they going to fall off and then go away? Then you have to have the same conversation in September. Maybe that's the answer, is you got to reach out to these 2 and figure out if they're going to participate, and if they're willing to do another term later on, then you have some stability there, at least for those 2.
I don't see a point in reducing it because you have the option of 5 or 7. And if, something wonderful came up and it was needed a committee, we could expand it and, or.
You can appoint as up to 7 or as
Yeah.
few as 5, no matter how many applications you have.
It would be wonderful to have more than less, but you still have to get your quorum. And if people knew that that their meetings were not going to be in the off-season, say, more people might join, but because they say, well, I can't be here for the summer and I'm not going to fly in for a meeting that might get canceled.
And again, that's up to the committee, and that's up to your direction to the committee.
And that does not preclude us as a board to conduct any historic preservation business. But, so if they can't meet, we don't have a quorum, we can still, as the board, and address any issue we want.
I think the other part of this, you haven't really talked about what your direction to them is to do. I know Scott's talked at length in the last year about historic structures that are left, going through the list of that was in the comp plan, seeing how many of those are remaining. Is there grants? Is there other things? Doing that research to bring back to you. Those are tasks that could be done, but they haven't met, so you haven't been able to assign that to them.
I think the thing that we were trying to do is twofold. One, identify the structures, have a process in place that if the structure is going to get taken down, that we can fast track it to go to a location. But the other key is finding that location. Where on the island can these homes go? Even if it's close by off island. We're trying to put that Orlandini cottage or whatever it's called over by the school, but there's some other. We had targeted some other areas. Perhaps the women's club. They have some land, but we have to have the processes in place that when somebody buys one of these homes or lots, got to have a process in place to get those homes to the landing ground.
And it's not just one. I mean, it's because each structure is different. Each structure would have a different recognition potentially. And each structure may be used for a different purpose, right? So if you take a cottage and convert it to commercial, that's a different issue than residential, but also what type of designation is it getting? So all of that, you almost need 4 different solutions and potential processes for each of the types of categories and recognition, if that comes up. Or for ones that don't get recognized, you just want to preserve. They're all different answers.
And there's costs involved too. So where's this money coming from? And we had kicked around several different ideas. Well, there's demolition. I mean, we were just throwing out ideas. Demolition tax, maybe a part of the budget. Fundraisers. But we need money set aside because you need permits.
Needs to be moved quickly.
And then there may be grant opportunities for facade improvements and repair. I mean, there's lots of different things to do.
Grants too. But we would need to identify a grant writer.
Is Gloria still in Lee County? Remember?
I think she's retired.
Because she was wonderful, and she did a lot of grant writing and things like that for us when I was on the board.
Again, all of these are things that you can do. My understanding is the committee was created to help you do some of that and get that public feedback. But again, none of this discussion includes you from actually moving forward with some of that stuff also.
Okay.
More people to help.
Well, I personally don't see the need to change this in any way at this time.
Concur.
And can we put, but I do think that if somebody is not available for 3 consecutive meetings, that they should consider resigning, so that the committee can move forward with replacing them. I don't know how, we don't want to fire anybody that's volunteering, but we would like to have an opportunity or a rule kind of for them to think about if they miss 3 meetings without excused absence.
I don't know if that's in the all committees, but we can look in that and see.
LPA has something, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, but
called
you've got your own enabling.
3 consecutive meetings
Yeah.
or 3 meetings without.
So all the other committees are under. We
Okay.
can look at that.
Patrick, I liked your idea about maybe just meeting during season. So if the next terms start in October, that gives us 5 months to, we'll get with Lori and Bev and see if they would like to continue. And then we've got 5 months and maybe have the first target meeting as October.
Right, because then you only need 1 person. You're 5.
I think we need to get together prior to that as a board and come up with a list of priorities as to what we want
Direction.
to direct.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's great because a lot of the people, what are we going to do? And if we provide them some direction, some goals that interest.
And especially a few of you guys have been on this for a while, so you've had those discussions, you know what needs to be addressed.
We will reach out to the 2 existing members, find about their long-term goals, I guess. And then, obviously, then the challenge is to add 2 more. To do that again. LPA member, that would be your 5.
Are you going to stay on, Scott?
I rolled off.
Oh, you did off. Okay, I'm sorry.
If it comes down to needing more body, I'd
Like you could be like the alternative LPA person if he isn't
I mean, you can have
available.
more than one.
No, I'm just saying, we have if an LPA person has to be there and he's going to be out of town, could somebody else step in or not?
I would,
Committee would choose that.
well, no, you as an LPA choose who your LPA member is.
I
The
know.
problem is that's got to be council approved is the way that
Oh,
works.
you can't have, you can't have an alternate
Let me just,
LPA meeting? LPA.
Not the way that was written. That, maybe that's the conversation you should have is.
You can't go out of town
Asking the
during
council for
season.
it to be generic versus specific.
Okay,
I could reach out to Russ and KT and he's been on the board and see if there's an interest in October. If, if we have just meetings during season, I think
would help a lot, I think.
December meeting is always tough because it fights around Christmas. So I could change, my recommendation would be to change day, because usually it's the 4th Thursday of the month, and in November,
Thanksgiving and then
run into
Christmas.
Thanksgiving, and then you run into Christmas. So if we're just talking out loud, that we could probably change the day of the meeting.
Might help
It's
too.
all great conversations for the committee to have.
I think
Right.
that would help too.
I agree, because
Have
I
a great
remember
meeting in
that too.
October. Oh, can't meet in November, can't meet in December. All of a sudden it's January.
Now you have 4 meetings per month, or year, and that's it.
So I think if we change the day, that would, of course, that would really help.
I wonder if we could get somebody from the women's club to get involved, if the
Beverly.
women's club is an opportunity for us to.
That's the, they've kicked that idea around. I'm not speaking for the women's club at all. I mean, that was an example we used.
No, but if we could get somebody there, we might generate some,
I think Beverly's involved, isn't she?
I think she is, she used to be
Or used to be, I know.
an
So, I
officer.
mean, they had, they had some interest because of their building. I know the Art Association has some interest because that's a really cool historic building. So I know the Flaherty's had expressed some interest in getting their building recognized in some manner.
That would be great.
I think if we could just reach out, to the community, and it's a necessity, especially, we don't want our island to turn
I'll make my offices.
into one row of same old,
Get ready.
I think it's really nice to have some committees where they are meeting on a more, to give opportunities for people that would like to get involved in the town, to have a committee that isn't expected to meet 12 months a year. There
Right.
are a lot of people, but they just won't come forward because they
Right.
don't want to.
I think that would be a good idea for just be an in-season committee.
And I don't know if that's practice and expectations, but I think you're right. I mean, it's knowing that we're not going to meet 12 times a year, and then you don't have to have the 3 misses and with that issue.
Right.
I mean, as somebody that's on numerous nonprofits and committees and meet every month, it's hard to keep that schedule.
There's some groups out there that meet like once a week.
It's
It's crazy. I mean, people are stressed for time, and now with Zoom calls and everything, that it's somewhere in person is a lot more difficult than it was 2 years ago. So
again, that's entirely up to the committee. There's nothing that I've read in here that says minimum number of meetings per year. To direct them to have meetings, I mean, again, it's open.
well, if a situation arose where a cottage was at a point in time, I guess you could call a meeting that month, or
We will have one next month for you. Again, it's come in and there's a notification period. Call by, and then process still continues regardless of the committee status.
Basically, we have thought process of reducing to 6 meetings during season only, changing the date to not be fall on 2 holidays, and to contact all past members to see if they want to get involved. And then we need to have a meeting prior to, in September, they roll off. Can we appoint somebody at that time?
Yes, you'll have to, generally, the past practice in the last couple of years has been that first meeting in October, I think, for the council is most of the committee reappointments are on that. So it's a big list for them to do, but that would be, yes, that would be.
So at the September meeting, when we appoint the 2 people, maybe we should have some kind of agenda to go over as to what our direction is going to be when they start having their meetings in October?
Yeah, so you as the board would need to think about an agenda and direction in September for when appointed, and then they started October and November, correct?
Okay, can you put on your August agenda to come up with agenda for September? I'm going to keep rolling that forward with us to think about it on that action list. Anybody else have any input? Dan wants to be on another committee. I'm teasing you, Dan. All right, we aren't voting on anything, so if there's no other comments, then we'll move on to, I need to have my agenda here.
LPA meeting items and report.
Thanks. I don't know what I did with it. Okay,
LPA members.
LPA member items and reports.
This is where your member would report on the Historic Preservation Advisory Committee, if it was going on. As one of them.
Which we've already done.
Okay, Forrest, you want to start? LPA members?
I don't have anything else to
Nothing
add
to
what
report.
we've already said about it.
No, I mean, just on LPA members, items or reports. Anything you
I
want
have
to
nothing.
discuss? Karen?
I don't have anything.
Nothing for me.
Well, we are really boring.
About a big shout out to the Chamber of Commerce for putting on a great event and to Shuckers for another great event. So you can see that the community can come together and will carry on. So
Wonderful.
both events were wonderful, well attended, and I guess they raised a lot of money weekend for the
PTO, yeah, and the PTO did a great job, and
It was
they're
a
very
fun night.
thankful for that collaboration, and it's gonna help out the kids for sure.
Okay, I have a couple things. One, I did check, and we are using these still for the next year. So if you have one of these, you don't have to come in and get another one of these. We're just going to use the same 2019-2020 hurricane reentry passes, and I think we should acknowledge that we've just lost our oldest restaurant and bar, or actually just bar on the beach, and stay so long, and sorry to see you leave, with the Mermaid. And they had I was like, on the street at 10 o'clock, there was unbelievable amount of people there the night before, and I'm like, what has happened? I somehow missed that agenda, or I would have been there too. But
Church?
at church on Sunday, got to find another chapel. We can always go to the Baptist church or any other facility on the island. I also wanted to say that I've been talked to by a contractor saying that they're having a horrible time with, if they come in with something and they get a response, they respond back within 3 hours, and then they're told it's a 2-week automatic delay, or they have 2 weeks to respond. And they're very frustrated because, they've got so many delays with windows and doors and wood and things like that, that they've got stuff now, waiting, and then they can't move forward because of a one-line response that they needed to give. Is there any way to move that up quicker than 2 weeks? Or that's just an automatic response?
I don't know what you're referring to, and frankly, I don't want to have a conversation about individual permits in this setting.
One of the things that, if contractors are not aware, they can hire third-party reviewers. So you can hire engineering companies to do your inspections. If you don't want to wait for the town to respond, third-party inspections are available.
This is to get the permits.
That can be done. The inspections can be done by other folks that certify your inspection, then it's turned into the local jurisdiction.
I wasn't aware of that.
I'll also say, I hope those contractors are telling you about the hundreds of permits they're getting in a timely
They
fashion.
weren't talking too much about that.
Well, they usually don't, but
There's a few that come
I
to the
can
island.
promise you that the
Most-
numbers are weighted in one direction over another.
I also had someone bring up that they called in to see if they had to get a permit for a dumpster they were, taking their tile out and stuff like that in their house. And they were told that, yes, they had to have a permit, and it was $50. They went online and did that, and then they got a bill back for $200 before the dumpster got there. So she called up and said, I'm not paying $200 for, oh, well, somebody told you wrong. It is $200, and it's not $50. She canceled that, but she still has a bill on her address. It hasn't been removed. What can she do? She's called and,
With all due respect, why are we having this conversation about the building department
because
in the LPA meeting? And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question because it's an individual permit and a fee that it processed by the front. And frankly, I don't know why we're having this conversation.
because we get asked all the time, and
Okay.
we are, because who are we supposed to take?
Send them to administration, send them to the staff here. So the
Obviously,
same
they're
thing
not
that we
getting
tell
the
any-
responses
I-
that they
I think-
need.
I don't think that's fair. And I think coming in here and having these conversations about the negative parts all the time without having the positives is detrimental to what we deal with every single day. We have to fight this every single day.
I understand that.
Well, this is part of the reason why. I have to constantly show people the positives that we're doing and the good things that we're doing.
Well, I
And I just don't think
appreciate
it's
that
appropriate
hopefully there
here,
are a lot of people happy with the services they get here. But, because the town is supposed to be working for the community.
Absolutely.
But I think we should have an open discussion about it when people ask us to communicate.
I'm not prepared. I don't know what permit you're asking
Okay.
about. I don't know the fee situation. I don't know the address. We can look into it.
Okay.
Would
And
that be something that even is, where would be the appropriate opportunity for people to come and express some of those concerns? Could there be like an open, I've heard from many, many people on the island similarly, and I understand what you're saying, Jason. This isn't the right forum or place to have those kinds of conversations. But I think there is public frustration that they feel things aren't going as quickly, and contractors, some people don't come out here, won't accept work out here. There are issues. And I think that it's always, the way, from my perspective, the way you address those things is to have an open dialogue where people can kind of vent what their experience has been, and then, hear back from the town's approach or how it's being handled. And I don't know what venue that would be open to do that, but I think that's something that might be
I would ask,
needed.
why are those individuals not coming to us or a director or the town manager and expressing those items? And if the answer is nobody's answering them, I don't agree with that.
No, well,
Because we
I-
deal with this every day. This is probably 30-40% of our time is dealing with that specific type of questions.
who should they contact?
They're getting an answer from a staff member, and they can ask to talk to a supervisor or a director, or, obviously, it doesn't make sense just to direct everybody to the town manager for everything.
That's what I mean.
Those things are getting resolved on a daily basis. Believe it or not, sometimes it's miscommunication and a contractor or an applicant doesn't understand or misunderstood something. We end up refereeing fights between contractors and property owners because they don't communicate. So, my answer is, if with any chain of command, is go to a supervisor and ask and express your concern. Write an email and we'll follow up on it.
See, this is conversation that I can give back to them instead of just letting them just go, I don't care.
But to Karen's point, I think there's a valid citizen concern about the permitting process and the timeframes. In other communities, and we're a small community, we don't have a huge staff, completely understood. Other communities have addressed those issues through more public participation, better communication, stuff online you can do, and tighter mandated responses from staff. I think it's a valid discussion. I understand this is not the right place right now, but I think we could possibly ask council to do a workshop on the issue. That could be a request from the LPA, that we ask council to do a workshop on permitting.
I think that'd be a great
And
idea.
that could be educational, and people can,
the
voice
contractors
their
to come in.
comments, but then staff can have responses, and maybe good suggestions come out of that, and we have a different system.
And I agree with you, there's a benefit to discussing the process. Having everybody line up that didn't get something the day they wanted it isn't beneficial. I'm dealing with an issue today that they responded a day later after they got their comments, and they're complaining because they don't have a permit yet. They didn't respond. They did a response. They didn't answer or resolve any of the outstanding issues. In their mind, they think they did, but they ignored the 7 other comments. So those are the kinds of comments, unfortunately, that I think the public hears. They're not necessarily justified, but now is there better communication and better process to make sure that they understand those issues? Yes, we can always work on that. Absolutely.
I was also asked to find out if we have access to permits here yet,
I don't know what that question means.
without coming into the building. If we have an access online to
You're talking
be-
historical research
for, like, when we list something, I like to go back and see if there's outstanding permits. I want to know if they got permits for whatever that's there. It's hard for me to, I know if they've got a unit downstairs and it was built in 2010, I know it's wrong, but what I need is to be able to confirm what I'm representing is real, and if not, then I need to ask them questions. So I use it as a tool for my business, and I want to represent the property properly, and want, to disclose if there are known facts that are not permitted. I want that in the seller's disclosure so that the seller's responsible and not me.
I don't know, it's the same question from previous months in that the Trackit software that's previous used has threat issues related to accessing town
No, but
systems.
every other town has them, and I don't understand why we can't.
Again, it's the same conversation from previous months.
No,
I'm not
Let's
IT.
fix it.
I am not the venue in which to fix it. I've explained it's IT issues. The administration has decided not going to have access to that. You can come in and look at the historical. All of the permits that have been through iWork since 18 are available, be reviewed. I believe there was a huge data dump and transfer from Trackit over to iWork in most cases. I don't know if it was all of it, but I know there's some historical stuff that was pulled over. That's all I can tell you.
How would we go about, can we make a motion? I know right now we're not in a public hearing, just discussing this. Motion that we would like council to address this issue of having some kind of online permit review, or at least having something.
Again, we're talking
accessible.
about pre-2018 permits is what you're talking about. Things that were in a different software program. I don't want everybody out there watching thinking
Okay.
we mean all of them, right? So
Currently,
things
the
are
current
easily
ones are
reviewed.
online.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, but it's the old ones that are more difficult to know whether they have permits.
Understood, but old ones, almost every jurisdiction, you pass a certain time frame, having to go in there with microfiche, or
I know, but-
you're having to order boxes from storage, and,
I'm talking since we became a town, 1995. That's not too far back.
well, far enough that you didn't have Adobe PDFs like we have today.
Well, but we had a program, and that should be transferable to something that is accessible. I mean, if you want to have the old stuff because it was hacked on something else that's still available, because they don't mesh, then fine, but
I actually, to some degree, echo the comments that you heard from staff. We've had this conversation before. There were issues that we had from an IT standpoint that affected the decision to have that information available, because we don't want a repeat of the problems we had before, the hack. Everyone's very well aware of that. That creates limitations on us, all of us, including staff. And we are doing our best within the resources that we have to make as much information of that available to the public readily available. But there are limitations. And past a certain point, that information is available, but you have to come to town hall. Now, the fact that other jurisdictions may have that information more readily available in electronic format available to the public may be a function of they didn't have the problems we've had. And if they were to experience those problems, maybe they'd change their mind of how they keep that database. But the information is available. It's just not available in the most readily accessible electronic format that minimizes the amount of work that someone has to do. Yeah, past a certain point, you better be able to pull the permitting history for a particular property. You are going to have to come into town hall. I apologize for that, but that's how the system is set up at this point in time. We certainly have no problem in taking your concerns to the town council, subject to them directing staff and making the appropriate budgetary appropriations to potentially migrate the data to a different database and do all the things that need to be done and incur the costs that need to be done. That is their policy direction, and we'll follow that as they give that direction to us. But until such time, we're limited to what we currently have.
I would love to see that happen, just because it keeps coming back up and we don't have a good answer, and so we keep coming with the same thing that, you have to come to town hall and
I mean, that
closed
is the
forever.
answer.
Now we're open, so that's at least a step in the right direction, because that was a frustration for a lot of
It
people.
may not be the answer that everyone wants to hear, but that is the answer that we currently as staff have for you and the general public and anyone else who asks. Part of the information is available online, but past a certain date, unfortunately, you have to come into town hall because the limitation of our current IT situation is such that we feel it's safer and better to have those documents in town hall. We'll make the information available to you. If you give us a heads up, we can, potentially have the information or some of it or help you when you come in. But that's it. I don't know what more we can tell you.
So I can also say that, talking to Carl, that we believe that there's the permit history stuff is on each of the addresses and parcels tied to that. So if there's old permit information, it is in the iWork system. It doesn't give you the details of the permit or the attachments or all that, but at least if there's something there, to research that permit. So it gives you a start. So all that information supposedly all that information is tied and ready by address.
What is that email again?
Is the email?
The website.
I don't have the full whatever it is, but
Okay,
it's
so-
on our building permit website. I believe you can sign up and register and become a user and then go in and do research for that data.
Is there still a computer out here that you can access, or do you have to have an appointment to go sit with somebody or do something to get it on?
Out here, right?
There used to be one. I don't pay attention anymore.
I believe it's an appointment.
But you have to have an appointment to come in to research something. Who would that appointment
Okay,
be
Patty's
with?
shaking her head at me and saying, no, there's a computer out there that you can come,
Okay.
that you can come use.
Okay, so there is a computer, we can come in without an appointment to research.
But again, you can register and do the whole iWork thing and look on there and find, there was a past permit, I need more information. Then you can come into our access to track it here and see the more details on that.
That's my members.
I just have, ask the council, in what regard is the freedom of information tie into this, if at all? When they come in, if it's, are they required to go through the normal request for a public record?
No,
No.
no, they can either come in or make an appointment, or if they want, they can theoretically make a public records request, and we'd assemble the information and make it available to them if they so wish.
Which we get a lot of. So, between zoning verification letters, public records requests, all that stuff is a regular occurrence.
Any other LPA member items or reports? Okay, any attorney items? Anything from community development?
No, we talked about the items. For June, we'll have to have the annual CIP, capital improvement plan projects related to infrastructure, mostly impact fee related expenditure type things for the next 5 years. That's where the current year rolls off and you add a new 5th year. So that'll be on your agenda for June. Hopefully the historic recognition, and we're trying to get some special exceptions and variances pushed, enough information from them so we can put them on your June agenda so they don't get delayed by July.
Was the June meeting June 8th?
Sounds about right. Tuesday, right?
Okay,
So, Jason, a comment and a question, I guess, on the CIP. I recall looking at last year's CIP. We have broad roll-up categories, meaning that you don't get to see individual projects. So, there could be a budget allocation to public works or whatever. You don't get to see the 5 planned projects coming up or whatever. I would just, comment in this year, if we can provide a little more detail as to what those could be.
For the last 2 years, at least, we've been providing the individual projects and the anticipated year of expenditure for more of a traditional CIP. Frankly, when I got here, I don't know that the LPA was seeing those types of plans, which is from the planning world, as you know, Patrick, from the, your CIP for your comp plans that we used to have to do and all that. That's a different animal than some of the things. I think what was being traditionally shown is capital expenditures related to equipment and that sort of thing. So you see really both at this point. But you should see all of our impact fee expenditures on sidewalk projects or their capital projects. Really, that should be all be in there. It's my goal is to have you see that. That's what it's intended for. It's in that, and then that works its way into the budget. It's supposed to get adopted as part of the budget cycle in September.
So, and I could be completely wrong here. My memory might be off.
We did
but
individual sidewalks. We did
For
individual
example,
lighting.
like the whole Bay Oaks budget associated with, having a consultant look at that, come up with, I don't know under what category it was, but it didn't seem very discreet as to, budget allocated to conceptual plans. or
Correct,
something like
yes.
that.
So
It was, I don't know what it was rolled up into, but that's what I'm saying is,
Gotcha.
if we've got more detail to provide it, because I think I'd like to know exactly what those discrete projects are, and we're a small island, we don't have a ton of them, and I think the public would like to see that too.
So it's the same thing with the other capital projects. We don't generally break out, like for a sidewalk project, if there's some other components to it, like some drainage components or some correcting of culverts and stuff like that, we don't break that out. It's generally just what is the expense for that project and what time frame in the 5 years it'll be spent. So you're asking for more, we've talked about trying to do detailed sheets. It's just hard as a smaller community and smaller staff to get there. We've got several communities as examples that do a great job of those, and I've worked with some of those. Problem is they're, billion-dollar budgets and, 1,000 employees. So it's hard to mimic that, the level of detail that's required to do that. So I understand what you're saying, but we're trying to get there.
any other comments? Anything else on the agenda for next month?
I mean, in theory, it should be 4 or 5 items, so it should be a decent meeting. We'll just see if we can get all the information to us to be able to process that and go from there.
Any public comments?
Ready from the public.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn?
Second.
Patrick made the motion and Scott made the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we get to stay and learn how